Another thing I don't have time to do is my hair.
I want to cut that hair, man.
I just cut it.
Let me give you a haircut.
Oh, you want to cut it? Yeah, I know, I do too. You should just get me in the middle of the night one night and be like,
just
Jay did
shave
it. Jay is 100%
Smart.
Jay's responsibility.
I'll come up behind you, choke you out, and then shave your head. So, man, I'm pretty excited to understand where you're at right now. And one thing that I've always thought was super interesting about you as a person is it always seems like you make decisions based on your heart. And I think that's admirable, because I think there's a lot of people that want to do things and that have a passion and a desire, but jumping off that ledge is way too scary, and they'll never do it. And sometimes I think it takes people that you observe that are following their heart. It takes somebody like that for you to be able to somewhat emulate them in that respect. And so we were talking about how you're not going to coach pro athletes anymore. So what was that decision like? And talk about that journey and that process.
Yeah, I think as you go through life, you have more and more experiences of making big decisions where you have to trust your heart, such as choosing to not have a coach anymore and have God as your coach or whatever. Experiences like that I've had, and that was a huge example of a big jump and a big thing, following my heart of what I felt like I needed to be doing at the time. And now I have so many different reflections on that time period, but that time period now has made me more sensitive to knowing what season I'm in. And kind of like we were talking about earlier about I do really well when I can focus in on something hard. And I like to focus hard and lean into things that I'm the most curious and interested and personally excited about, But the problem and the hard, challenging thing with life is we're all juggling so many things, right? So you have your work life, you have your own physical life, where hopefully you're doing some kind of physical activity at some point just to take care of this thing that we've been given, You have your family life, you have your social life, you have your, I like to learn things life, still studying, being a student, spending time researching things and reading books and watching podcasts, or however you like to take in information. I like to still learn and grow as a person. And as a coach, it's kind of my season as a runner, 20 plus years of running experience, did prepare me to coach athletes and coach them to a high level, and I'm super proud of all the athletes I got to work with, and it was an honor and privilege to work with all of them. And I think we did get some pretty good results, and I'm excited about how people did. And of course there was athletes who struggled and we didn't get the results we were hoping for. There was that as well, But I had this very nice season from 2016 when I retired from pro running till now 2024, where I was coaching the whole time through. And the thing that I observed about coaching is it's a different kind of mindset than being an athlete, because now you're still always learning and growing yourself, but you're learning and growing so that you can impart information to other people to help your athletes, right? Or help our run free athletes. It's you're trying to grow so that you can help this person, right? But that's a different style of learning when you're just I'm just at school and I'm just trying to learn, it's not for someone else. It's just for me to absorb this information, chew on it for a long time, and keep chewing on it and absorb more information that's gonna give me different perspectives, and then really figure some stuff out over a long period of time, So to answer your question, I just felt more and more I needed to change the posture in which I was going through life, from someone who is trying to impart wisdom primarily to someone, because there's always that part of me that is still looking to grow. You know, I'm not saying when I was coaching I was just trying to tell people what to do all the time, but as a coach you have to tell people what to do all the time. That's what you do. That's part of the job. You're on the journey with them emotionally and all the other, but you are writing the training as well, telling them exactly what to do today. And that's a big responsibility, especially when you're coaching pros and their livelihoods dependent upon it, their families dependent upon it. So it's a heavy responsibility to carry around as a coach, you know. And I took that very seriously. So it was on my mind a lot. You know, I'm chewing on athletes training, what's right for this person, why is their training not clicking? It's on the mind, you know. I'm chewing on it constantly throughout the day. I'm with my kids playing basketball and I'm thinking about how am I going to get to 3 different workouts all in the same morning? How am I going to juggle everyone, you know? And it takes mental space as well, you know? So it's not just the time you spend at the workout or the time you spend at the computer. It's the time up here that you spend trying to juggle all the pieces together. And, you know, I've been spending a lot of time praying and meditating. And I think that has kind of revealed to me a little bit how ungrounded I was as a person, you know? And I think to be the kind of coach that I could be, or it doesn't even have to be a coach, but just the kind of human that I could be potentially as I get into the second half of life, if I'm not grounded, I'm just floating, you know? And I can feel it when I'm floating and I don't like it. I don't like it because I know I'm not being as effective at everything that I do as a dad, as a husband, as in the weight room. Like if my mind is not able to be where I want it to be in that moment, I get frustrated and I can feel what I'm doing not being as effective, you know?
So I feel like you have a keen awareness on intensity of your actions, right? Like when you were training as a professional athlete, I knew you. But I knew you very differently than now.
Right.
Like I see your personality shift. Like you were tired a lot. You didn't laugh as much. You were like zeroed in, blinders on, focused.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run as fast as I can. And so I feel like you as a coach in a similar way. Like I totally can see you.
Yeah.
I totally can see you like spending like 5 and 6 hours a day just thinking about one person's training to get it right. And then the next day you're like spending a few more hours on them and a few more on somebody else. And then it's just like all in all the time with everything you do.
Yeah.
Like that is just your personality.
Yeah. And then you have like kids who want to do stuff and then you're thinking about other stuff or tired from the training or other stuff you're doing. And sometimes I'm just like, dude, I mean, I was doing things 100% of the day until I went to bed. I do not watch any television. I don't watch one. The only time I watch movies is if I'm on an airplane or if I'm giving Sarah a massage, you know? Like, I use it as multitasking occasionally, but most of the time, like, if you ask me about shows or TV or whatever, I'm like, dude, I don't know. I've never heard that in my life. I don't have cable or, you know, I'm just, I don't have time in my schedule to do that stuff. And that, I think, was a little bit not balanced. You know, you have to, again, ground yourself. And I think that happens through rest, you know, and sitting still and not doing anything. Like I said, for me, the hardest challenge is to sit and not do anything. But now that I've forced myself to do it through meditation and prayer, I actually love it because I feel so much better to get those little breaks throughout the day, 20, 30 minutes, 3 times a day. Just sneak them in when you can get them. And I'm like, oh, I feel so much better afterwards. I feel rested and my mind's not freaking ping-ponging all over the place. So, you know, there's like that kind of like mental health component too. But for me, it's not mental health. It's training focus. You know, like in meditation and prayer, it will show you, it will expose your own mind to you, you know? And I was realizing how unfocused my mind was. So I just really felt like I was in a season of needing to put myself in student posture.
And regroup.
Constant student posture. I just want to learn and grow. That's all I'm here to do. I'm not trying to help anyone else. I just want to learn and grow. And then as I develop as a student, maybe potentially down the line there's opportunity for me to get back involved with either coaching or not coaching. But I know like my life purpose is wrapped up in bettering humanity, bettering my family, bettering my relationships. And obviously like some things will continue to go on, like stuff with Run Free. I'm still doing the same exact stuff at Run Free. Nothing there has changed. Still, connecting with our athletes, looking over their intake. But that allows, doing that is much different than
being on site
yeah.
3 times a week for 7 or 8 different athletes that may have different workouts on different days. And then also the thought process, what you're doing with Run Free is you're helping the setup process between the athlete and the coach. And then you're giving the athlete almost more of like a coach consultant, where you're available to answer a question or to fill in a gap or to be a part of the journey as a support team.
Yeah, exactly. I'm a family member.
Yeah.
And so it's like you and I as founders, our heart was to develop a system similar to a family where people can come into it and be supported in all the right ways and be given as much wisdom and guidance as we know how to give them, and allow them to grow and flourish in a positive environment, So luckily that does not revolve around me at all. It's a whole, we are a team of people that I'm just one of the guys in the family.
I feel like it's much more of like a shared responsibility, which is interesting because shared responsibilities can float to another person, and then it floats back to you, and then it floats to another person, and that heavy burden of every decision being made doesn't exist on you.
Exactly.
Yeah. But at the same time, as Run Free athletes and Run Free coaches, man, we still get to enjoy and experience the things you do have to share and the knowledge you do have. And I think the cool thing is getting to experience as you become more and more grounded and more into like this learning phase. Like there's no way, if you're learning and you're excited about what you're learning, there's no way you don't share it. Like that's just at the nature of learning.
Right.
You learn something new and you're like, oh my gosh, this is so cool, I gotta share it.
Right. But then at the same time, we don't let our 4th graders teach our seniors in high school. You know what I mean? So it's like there is that phase you got to go through, and I think it's natural to also go through this right around midlife, where you're like, all right, I went through one school that prepared me to do one thing. Now I need to go through a whole different kind of school to prepare me for the second phase of life. This is going to look very different than the first phase, and that's just how it is as a human being,
Yeah, you're either going to dig into learning and being grounded and growing, or like another midlife crisis, you just go off the deep end and turn yourself into a wreck because you're like, who am I? What am I doing? Why am I here? And you don't spend the time to answer those questions. Yeah,
and you don't want to change, and you're mad that things have changed from the past. So you're always talking about the past. Remember when I did this? Remember when we did this? And you're talking about college days all the time. I like hardly ever talk about that stuff because I'm like, I'm not in college anymore.
That's like, did you ever have like a new recruit when you were in college that would come in talking about what they did in high school?
Oh yeah.
And it's always like, oh man, this poor kid.
Yeah, like in high school we used to do this work.
Yeah. My coach in high school, and then the head coach of the college team is like, oh my gosh, I got to deal with this kid.
Yeah, I mean that's kind of
like, it's just a sign of insecurity and immaturity when all you can talk about is what you did 20 years ago.
And I get scared of coaching those kind of athletes when they come to me, and I do want to learn about their past experiences. That is important. And you can learn stuff from talking to someone about stuff they've done before. And I like doing that. But if they're doing what you're talking about, just always talking about what they used to do, I'm like, dude, you're not even here anymore.
Yeah, you're not in the moment at that point. You're living so far behind that now we're back to that conversation about focus that we had before, where it's like, you're not even focused on what you're doing right now. You can't possibly do it well if you're thinking about something
Right.
from 10 years ago.
And you're not open to good things happening in any other way than exactly how it happened before. You know, I got to run this time this meet, and then this time this meet, and then this time this meet, and then I'll get here. You're not open to the fact that maybe you're really fried from your training and you just need to take 2 weeks down, and then you're going to pop a big one right now.
Yeah.
You know, but you're like, no, like if I didn't run faster in that last race compared to last year, I can't do it.
That's like one of my pet peeves is the phrase burnout. When somebody's like, I'm experiencing burnout, more than likely, you're just tired.
Right.
Like,
Just need a
you're
little
just
break.
tired.
Yeah.
Let's call it what it is.
Yeah.
You just need a little break, and then you'll feel good 3 days later,
Right.
4 days later.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't be afraid to like just take a little 3-day reset when
Yeah.
you need it.
Yeah.
I like I remember what you said, how some days you like to pretend like you're sick when you're really
Yeah.
tired.
Yeah.
It's like, that's such good advice.
So if like I have something that I feel like has not healed, or I just don't feel good, I will essentially, like in my mind, call in sick.
Play hooky, dude.
And I will. I will lay in bed as much as I can,
Uh-huh.
and I communicate to the family and like whatever work responsibility, I make sure that that's not shirked. But I'll tell Carmen, hey, I'm done. I have overcooked it. Like I messed up. I'm sorry, but I'm going to bed at 8 o'clock, and you know, you can just count me out for the day. And fortunately, she's so kind to me to be able to do that. But
Well, she probably sees that it works for you.
yeah,
you know?
and 2 days later, I'm like right back in the game instead of 6 weeks or 4 weeks of just this downward
Yeah.
spiral of terrible emotional and physical
Right.
downturn.
Right.
Yeah.
I always, it's funny you say emotional downturn, because I find I get the most like emotional and irrational like right before bed when I'm the most tired.
Huh.
I'm like,
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
I'm like, my life is terrible.
It's terrible.
And how
Yeah.
am I gonna do this? I'm like thinking these thoughts. I'm like, dude, you just need to go to sleep. Just go to sleep,
Yeah.
and you're gonna feel better in the morning.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
usually I do.
Sleep is the solution to a lot of issues. A lot of issues, especially emotional ones.
Yeah. Sleep and eat,
Yeah.
and then figure it out.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, cool, man. I'm excited about your next steps in the journey, and I'm also excited from a personal level. I read something the other day that the way that people influence people is usually first we mimic them in some way physically. So like if you spend a lot of time around someone and they have a particular like hand gesture,
Oh yeah.
like it's
yeah.
shown that like the more time you spend with someone, you'll copy them like physically. And then later you start to copy them emotionally. And that's why it's so important to spend time with people, like your main time with people that are in a good place where you want to go.
Right. Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Because
Absolutely.
you're gonna mimic them. There's
Right.
no way around it.
Right.
You're gonna find some trait that they do, good or bad, and you're gonna follow it. So on like a selfish level for me, like I'm excited to follow the journey and like get into some of the steps that you're taking into that next phase of life. I think it sounds super fun
Yeah.
and super enjoyable in terms of the meditation, slowing down, being open to learning, and just growing. Like that, I don't know anyone that's not excited about depth.
Right.
Like
Right.
depth, but depth is hard to attain.
It is.
It's really hard to
It takes
attain.
time.
And so when you're around people that are trying to attain it, man, awesome.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity.
Yeah. Yeah. And I always get like inspired by other people that I see. I'm like, dude, I want a little bit of that. You know, I want to get into that a little bit. Yeah. So I'm excited for the journey and see where it takes me.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Awesome. Dude, that was such a good one.